All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining the Acronis panel conference, Best Kept Secrets to Help MSPs Grow in 2021. I'm your host, Kenneth West. I'm the VP of Cyber Protection Research at Acronis. But before we get started, I'd like to share a few housekeeping notes as usual. So this conference will be recorded and we will email you a link of the recording afterwards so that you can share it with your friends or colleagues that might not have had the time to join live now today. So with that, let's move over to the next panel. And for that, I'd like to introduce the new moderator of the next session, Ray McGrath. He's the Global Sales Channel Lead for Acronis, and he has spent decades supporting the channel at places like Microsoft, Ingram Micro, and of course, that brings a lot of experience as well. So with that, over to you, Ray.
Thank you, Candid. Decades. I'm feeling very young right now. For today's panel, we're going to have a look at the opportunity that MSPs have to grow their business and customer loyalty by offering an expanded range of cybersecurity services. And we have some great panelists, some veterans for that purpose. So I'd like to introduce you to Richard and to Andrew. Firstly, Richard, he's one of his best known experts in the global IT MSP community. He launched and sold his own MSP business before creating and leading MSP media and consultancy practice. He's the author of a great book called the IT Business Owner Survival Guide, and writer and award-winning and very popular tubblog.co.uk. Richard, good to have you on board. We also have Andrew here. Andrew Parker is a managed IT services veteran. Our legend with over 25 years of experience in infrastructure, hosting, security, and enterprise applications. He is currently the CTO of Technovate. Andrew turned the company from a distributor model to a cloud services aggregator, and it'd be good to learn a little bit from him about that. Focused on security and data protection. He's also a Microsoft certified technology specialist and holds multiple vendor certifications, including a Acronis certified engineer for both backup and cyber protection. Gentlemen, good to have you on board and good to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's just kick on to the questions. We've got some questions here for you. I'll just open them up and let's have a conversation. Question number one is basically fairly open. It's how did the dramatic changes of the last year, this pandemic that affected us all, affect the day in the life of an MSP? You guys manage and work with MSPs on a daily basis, so you've seen this impact direct. How has it affected your MSP community, and what new opportunities have these MSPs, have they been presented with this?
I'll jump in first if I can, Andrew. Working with MSPs from all around the world in the Tech Tribe and other communities, I think if we rewind to last March, I now look back and call it the great working from home rush, Ray, because just every MSP I spoke to said they've been speaking to their clients about cloud services, something I know Andrew is very, very knowledgeable about. They've been speaking to them about improved security. They've been speaking to them about remote working. And pretty much most of their clients were like, yeah, we'll get around to that. And then March happened, and all of a sudden, everybody was picking up the phone to their MSP and saying, I want to move this service into the cloud. I want to have all my staff working remotely. Oh, and by the way, we want to do all of that securely. So it was the great working from home rush. And, you know, kudos to every single one of the IT businesses that are joining us today and all the MSPs around the world, because they just took that on the chin and they dealt with that and they became an essential service and kept all of these small businesses running. And I think the one good thing for me that's really come out of that is that IT is now treated as serious. It is now treated as something that small businesses have got to have instead of a necessary evil. I mean, the world wouldn't have carried on running without us all doing this work remotely. I'm sat here in the studio garage at home here at the moment and doing a Zoom call. We wouldn't have kept things running without that. So I think it's a big thumbs up for all the MSPs and all the IT companies watching today, because they've done an incredible job, haven't they, Andrew?
Absolutely. I think this was an opportunity for all of us, whether we defined ourselves as MSPs or we were just the IT guy for that matter. We stepped up, and our customers recognized that. It gave us opportunities. It could have been profitable depending on how well you played those opportunities, but basically a job had to be done. And hasn't that always been the case with an MSP, that, you know, a customer comes with a tricky problem, something that's affecting their business, and we solve that problem for them. definitely the opportunity to become strategic partners, to be working with customers at a C-level suddenly arose. And absolutely, I like that term, an essential service. It's it's good to be thought of as something vital to the running of a business rather than break fix. So yeah, we saw plenty of opportunities for MSPs there, and a lot of uptake, especially of cloud services, as you said. It just was so much simpler to deploy a cloud-based technology than to think about on-prem or any of the legacy stuff that some of our customers have been hanging on to. Maybe falsely thinking they were saving money or being efficient by sweating those assets, but when everyone had to get back home and work remotely and securely, that was a great way to shift to cloud quickly. I will say though that it meant we've done some mopping up lately. There was a big rush and it wasn't always planned as it could have been, and so there's been a bit of correction, a bit of course correction since then. Some of those early decisions have been a bit challenged, especially around security. People bring your own device, all of those policies hadn't yet properly been thought out. So there's opportunities even now to react to what happened a year ago and streamline and improve that.
Absolutely, Andrew. There's still a few Windows 95 PCs out there, so sometimes you have to go on premise. But
you joke
Richard,
about that, right? Sorry to jump in. I spoke to an MSP, and I'm looking at the attendee list, and I believe they're on the call today. An MSP that actually last March told me that they had a user from home phone them up and say, "We've got this laptop. Can you get us up and running with it?" And it was a Windows 95 laptop. So you joke about it, but this is what MSPs have been facing with. All joking aside, there's an opportunity there, as Andrew said, with the bring your own device side of things as well. So for everybody watching today who has ever got frustrated with a client saying to them, "Can you get this Windows 95 PC working?" or anything like that, this is an opportunity to have a conversation with them about business grade equipment, about doing things to a business grade as opposed to this sort of good enough grade of equipment that we often see out there. And I think Andrew in his business focus on the cloud area, which is very, very smart, and I can see why he's been so much in demand over the past 12 months. But even with cloud based applications, if you've got a 15-year-old laptop trying to run it on, it's a frustrating experience, not just for the clients, but for the MSP trying to support that as well. So there's huge amounts of opportunity here. Forgive me for interrupting, Ray. That's
no, Richard. I completely agree with you. I mean, I think we've seen. I don't know if any of us were lucky enough to buy Zoom shares this time last year. There was about $100. They're now about $450, and so we've seen. Microsoft Teams as well quadruple their business over the last number of months. But you can't forget the hardware as well. You can't forget that when you're looking at it from a distance. And again, internally in Acronis, we've seen a huge jump in the shift to cloud. That VAR to MSP shift has been moved dramatically. And this, as you coined it, and I'm going to take it, this great work from home rush, which is brilliant, has seen that. But you can't forget the hardware. And there is still a hardware opportunity out there to attach to it.
You can't buy printers for love nor money, let alone toner. It's affecting everything. I've never seen anything quite like it, in fact.
It's brilliant, and so okay. So in terms of that, so again, your MSP clients how have they embraced this co-management model? So where they're working with mid-market clients, where the client still runs a lot of its IT, how are they working in this new world where they're bringing in MSPs to support?
Yeah,
I could jump in there.
Please do, Andrew. Yeah.
My customers are MSPs, and they tell me that there's a lot more collaboration now. Traditionally, there may have been a view in some sectors that an MSP was there to take the IT department's job, to stray into their turf in a disruptive way. Now, IT departments don't care. They're desperate. It's obvious to them they've not been furloughed, so they know they're vital. They're feeling a bit more secure in their job. They're still working. So they're looking out to MSPs to provide what I would call service as a service, man hours and solutions for hire, solutions to build their clients' businesses' capabilities quickly. There's no opportunity to recruit. There's no budget for that, but they need what they need and they need it now. And suddenly that means that MSPs can be viewed as strategic partners, provided they position themselves that way and they work collaboratively. And there's always a bit of, what's the word? Not flattery, but you work with that team so that that IT department is viewed in a positive light. You certainly don't want to be outshining the man who's sitting in that seat, who's gone and got you in on a contract. And if you manage that relationship well, I think there's an opportunity for you to remain strategically part of that team long into the future. So yeah, absolutely. Co-management is now business as usual.
Yeah, and Andrew picked up on a really important point there about co-managed IT. So for anybody watching this who's not familiar with the idea of co-managed IT, it's where you're working with an internal IT team at a business. They've already got IT support, and many of us who have run managed service providers have come up against this objection, haven't we, from small businesses? They say, wouldn't it be easier for us to have our own IT department rather than a managed service provider? And my answer to that was, well, internal IT teams, they've been working, and especially over the past 12 months, they've been working really, really hard. They've been working all the hours since they need holidays, they have sick time, they need training. And so this is where a managed service provider can really step up, because we have got a breadth of knowledge. We've got lots of different skills. We keep at the cutting edge of technology as well. We buddy up with other IT companies to provide complementary services. And so, as Andrew said earlier, traditionally, Ray, internal IT teams would look at MSPs and sort of go, no, we want to keep you out because you could take our job. What I've seen over the past 12 months is these internal IT teams have now been reaching out to MSPs and saying, A, we need additional resource support because we want to take some holidays and some time off. And B, we need the breadth of knowledge. We don't really understand how to support home workers with all the things that go there. They're used to having people in an office where they manage the firewall and everything else. That world doesn't exist at the moment. The team is just spread everywhere. MSPs are used to managing dozens, if not hundreds, of different sites at the same time. So if you're watching this and you've previously been frustrated trying to speak to an internal IT team, take Andrew's advice and go and seek out a new conversation with them, because people are begging for the skills that you've got as an MSP right now.
Absolutely, and I think you pointed out there as well that essentially the MSP becomes the backup, to use an Acronis term, to that IT department as well, and works with them. And it's all about the conversation, isn't it? It's about working with, not working instead of, and ensuring that it's a collaboration led by that IT team.
Absolutely, I think it's a partnership, and we love that term because it's a bit like a marriage. It's a two-way thing, and the maybe not so dirty secret about MSPs is it doesn't actually matter how little they are. If they network, they talk, they're the people who know how to get stuff done. They, if they don't know how to do it, they know how to find someone who does. And there's great resources for MSPs like the Tech Tribe. There's Facebook groups. There's LinkedIn groups. There's all sorts of collaboration opportunities for MSPs to work together. So when you buy into an MSP, provided they know what they're doing and they're well connected, you're buying into a network of industry experts, far more than you could ever hope to hire, traditionally. So you're buying subject matter experts in various fields because you're buying part of that network. And that's, forums like this are opportunities for MSPs to get together, swap contacts, swap information, swap hints. And I can't wait to get back to the Acronis events where we actually get together in person, like we did in Miami, for example. Barcelona is another one I remember, just to talk, rub shoulders, talk about opportunities, Acronis and others. And, all of that benefits the customer ultimately, because you're building your knowledge, you're building your strength, you're building your industry contacts. So they have the benefit from that too.
Couldn't agree more with it, Andrew. If I can just point something out as well. So for anybody watching this who's like, IT companies working with one another, I would never work with the competition. Well, first of all, Andrew and I here having a conversation and sharing, hopefully as openly, as honestly as we can, about what we've learned. Secondly, Craig Sharp, who was in the session before this, who I thought was incredible and gave incredible advice to people. Craig's been running an MSP in Birmingham for 25 years. When I ran my MSP business, it was in Birmingham, and we were a competitor to Craig, but we were a friendly competitor. Craig and I had conversations, and we're very, very good friends to this day. And, you know, Craig is a go-giver, and he shares freely of his knowledge and experience in the MSP market. So if you're watching this, whichever part of the world you're in, and you're thinking, I could never work with my competition, not only are people doing it, but people on this call are doing it. And, you know, the old phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats, I think is really true. And thanks to people like Craig, you know, the knowledge and experience he's got of running an MSP has been shared far and wide. And so I just wanted to make that point there, Ray, for anybody who thinks this is just theoretical, this is happening in the real world.
Yeah, there's such an uptake in services and such a demand for IT that there's plenty out there to share. The pot is huge. It's unlike other more niche markets where, you know, you might be in competition and worried about your customer base. There's so much demand out there, probably far more than there is supply. And so, in fact, don't let that put you off. If you have a particularly difficult customer relationship and you're feeling that you're needing to compromise your professionalism, your integrity, or your standards, there's an occasion where you may need to walk away, and you're okay now because there's enough demand for high quality services that you can do that. I remember the days where, you know, you were so desperate to keep customers that you would do anything to satisfy their demands, and that wasn't a healthy relationship. So yeah, there's a lot of positivity that's come out of what's happened recently, believe it or not.
Excellent. And just if I step in for a moment and just to the participants, to the audience, if you have any questions, put them into the Q&A. I just saw one come in and got answered straight away about something about the Birmingham Mafia or something. But let's we can continue. And just on that point, MSPs working with MSPs, absolutely. From an Acronis point of view, we're working with other vendors as well. I have a conversation with, you know, a Microsoft every couple of weeks, talking about the channel, talking about the opportunities, because everyone is becoming a co-sell partner of everyone in this market. And Andrew, to your point, the market is absolutely huge. And to that, I mean, we see the MSPs, they're embracing cybersecurity, their services. A lot of them are embracing it for the first time. You know, a lot of people are on Microsoft, and then they're going thinking of Microsoft Plus or Google Plus. What advice do you give them to make these services attractive, to monetize that seat as well? Because I mean, what cybersecurity offers, not just loyalty to that customer, but also the opportunity for these service providers to be more profitable.
Yeah, I would say, remember, you always sell yourself before you sell a service, before you sell a solution. When you go in there recommending a vendor, ultimately the client adopts that vendor based on their trust in you. So make sure that the way you implement that solution, you do it well. You know, I would say keep it simple, be disciplined in testing, configuring, and documenting your solution. Act like a professional throughout. You know, the tools actually sell themselves. I mean, who doesn't want active protection? You know, everyone we demo anti-ransomware to wants that immediately, you know, so active protection sells itself, cyber protect sells itself. But the responsibility to ensure those tools are applied correctly, that they're monitored and managed, that ultimately lies with the MSP. So you've got to ensure that you've got your systems and processes in place. We spoke about earlier in the other session, the various tools that can help you do that. But actively, you know, you basically need to act professionally at all times, document and monitor your solutions properly. And don't wait to be invited to intervene. The customers don't always know what they need to know. They don't know what they need to ask you. I can't think of a customer would say, hey, did you remember to test our DR invocations? Have you perfected the run book? No customer is going to come to me and ask me to do that. They just expect that I'm doing that in the course of my work. So don't wait to be invited to intervene. Just step up and address those issues, issue the guidance. Always make security and addressing risks to your client's business your main focus, and the profits will follow. You know, so really find the right product for what you need, for your customers' needs. Investigate the vendors, test them thoroughly, become subject matter experts in those products. but don't forget the responsibility for implementing those products properly lies with you ultimately, and it's your reputation, your brand at stake to get that right. I'm sure, Richard, you're all about developing service quality in MSP. So yeah,
absolutely.
I'm sure a lot to add.
As you can see from looking behind me, I'm a big fan of reading and books, Ray. So I'm just going to pull out a book here that just to say after something that Andrew said, and it's not my own book, by the way, for everybody expecting me to do that. So if anybody's never read this book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, I refer to this as the Managed Service Provider Bible. Now, it's nothing at all to do with managed services, but to the point that Andrew just made about having systems in place, processes, you need to build a business that can work without you being involved in it. And so this was a life-changing book for me, Ray, when I read this, going back to 2003, I think it was when I first read the book back then. So highly recommend what Andrew has said about systemizing your business. But to your point about, making profit from security services, I'm going to flip that on its head a little bit. So I think most people who are on the line with us today have experienced the frustration of speaking to a client about a burning security issue, and the client has gone, yeah, we haven't got the budget for that at the moment, or we'll push that off and we'll get that sorted at some point in the future. And we as MSPs, that causes us sleepless nights, doesn't it? Because we're like, we know it's going to be a problem for the client, not if, but when it's going to be a problem for the client. So to take your question and turn it on its head, Ray, when I looked at security services within my MSP business, we often didn't only look at whether we could sell this service to the client and make additional revenue on it. Great if we could, and you often can, but we often looked at how could we lower our cost of support by providing additional services. So let me give you a great example here. Back when I started off, I'm an old man of the industry now, but when I started off, believe it or not, antivirus was an additional sale that we made to clients. Now, can you imagine today, everybody watching this saying to a client, oh, antivirus is optional, don't worry if you have it or not. We just couldn't imagine it, could we? But if you fast forward to today, there's lots of services that we know, security services we know are going to keep our clients safe and secure, but perhaps our clients don't see the value in them. There is an argument for you to offer those services and solutions to your clients as part of your basic package. So if it lowers your cost of support, a great example might be web filtering. How many of us have had phone calls from clients saying, something's gone wrong with my computer? Well, did you click on anything? Now, you can tell them until you're blue in the face, can't you? Don't click on dodgy links, but they click on the links. Whereas if you've got a web filtering service, and there's dozens of examples just like this, how can you put in place something that reduces the amount of support calls that you get? Because you are going to make money, even if you're not selling that service to the client, because it's going to reduce the amount of support tickets that you get, and it's going to increase your profit as an MSP. So, hopefully that makes sense, Ray. You asked about how to earn profit.
Definitely. And you approach it from two different sides also, which is you selling it as a service and making your margin there, or as you said, lowering the cost of support initially and selling it as a complete package. And I think the ideas of attaching antivirus, now backup and total cyber protection, that's the new initial attach. That's the new antivirus of the ages. Right. So adding it as a complete solution, I think, is definitely the way forward. We have some Q&As in. I'll just stop here for a moment and just jump into the Q&A and hit you guys, Richard and Andrew, with a couple of questions here if I read through them. First one here, what is the average amount of profits do you make on an average client, and how many clients on average would you need to serve? So these are very open questions. I don't know if you want to tell your secrets, but what is the most favorite service to sell?
That's a great question,
so I'll leave
Andrew.
that open.
If I might jump in here. So Alex asked the question to do with profits and how many clients on average. So there's going to be lots of people watching today who are established MSPs who sell flat fee services. When I started out, I was essentially a one-man band. I was an IT contractor, and my background was corporate IT. So I used to work for the NHS, Ernst & Young, and big organizations like that. I actually started my MSP business with just one client. and built it up from there. And I know that sounds logical, but in answer to your question, Alex, how many clients on average would you need to serve? If you've got one good client that you can start with, build on it from there. And that's entirely what I did within my business. Now, I started off also serving residential clients, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody, but we pretty soon focused on business clients and the right type of clients as well, which is something that Craig Sharp alluded to in his session earlier. In terms of the average amount of profits do you make on the average client? That, I'm not trying to be elusive here, Alec, but that really does depend on your geography, what type of clients that you service. But what I would say is don't think in terms of selling your time for money, because you'll run out of time really, really quickly. Think in terms of the value that you can sell to clients. And let me give you an example of this, Alex. Two types of clients. You might work with a small business who don't really care much about their IT. And so the value to them is actually quite low. I've actually had clients, I've said, well, what happens if your email go down? And they said, oh, we'd send a fax. A fax? I didn't realize fax machines still existed, but there you go. But then if you speak to maybe a solicitor's company who they are billing by the hour, and maybe they charge £300-400 or dollars per hour, if you speak to them about reducing the amount of issues they have in their IT, the value to them is going to go way up. So I'm not being elusive there, Alex, but when you ask about what's the profit you could see, depends on who you work with. So focus on clients who value the IT and place a value on the IT running their business. Those clients who see IT as a necessary evil, sort of stay away from them.
Absolutely.
Feedback, Richard.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Andrew, if you want to jump on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think there is a reality. I started my business in South Africa, and I remember my first deal was swapping a 286 PC with a photocopier. I did a job, delivered the 286 PC, and got a photocopier as payment. I used that photocopier to print 4,000 leaflets. I hand delivered the leaflets to businesses around town. From those 4,000 leaflets, I got 4 customers. Those 4 customers were the start of my business, and one thing led to another. So when you start out, you need to think quick, be ingenious, work hard, put the physical effort in. There was no paying a leaflet distributor. It was me doing it on my own back. And, you may pick up a residential customer. Some of my biggest customers have been through referrals via somebody's husband, somebody's wife who saw me working in their home. So there are opportunities there, and you need to be savvy. But look at what's delivering profit to you. Look at what's costing you in terms of your time. Remember, your time is money, and time wasted on an issue that needn't consume that time is money wasted. But absolutely, right from the start, promote yourself as a value adder, as what he's called value added resellers or integrators, whatever, but a strategic partner from the start. Look at what time costs to your customers. Very good point there, Richard. For a lawyer, an hour or two's outage is hundreds of pounds of cost, potentially thousands.
Yeah. Ray, I can see we've got a few other questions. Forgive me for jumping in because,
please do so, because the next question coming up is definitely correlated with what you're talking about. So continue,
I want to make sure that none of the question, and we don't leave any question unanswered. So I'm very conscious we're on time, but I think it was Alex and Nikolai both asked questions about sort of pricing and things like that. So I want to give another book recommendation, if I may, because we're going to run out of time here.
And you're going to have to put these in the chat window, these books as well.
I will put these in the chat window as well. Let me grab the book, but it's called, where's it gone? By my friend Nigel Moore. Can't grab hold of it at the moment. It's called Profit, Price, and what I will do is I will put that in the chat box for us as well. But Nikolai, Alex, if you want to drop me a line afterwards, I will happily send you a copy of that book because I recommend it so highly. It's a book by a guy called Nigel Moore. So forgive me, Ray, I'm a big book fan, and I want to make sure we get all these questions.
Fair play. Thank you so much, and very kind offer. So that's in terms of the questions. I think you've answered all of them that's come in. Chris has said to reduce the spend and therefore compromise security. This is I know you briefly touched on this, but it kind of goes back to that solicitor or the lawyer as an example. In this example, they've got businesses who clearly want to reduce their costs and reduce their spends. With pandemic, they may be on, not obviously their business may not be at where they want them to be. What do you do in that situation? Do you reduce your offering as an MSP, or do you just cut ties, or you just go on hold for a while, and then when business comes back, you rebuild their security? Because you can't necessarily stop security for 24 or for 2 months because they haven't paid, because that's when they're most vulnerable, and that's when you then need to kick in. So I don't know if you guys have any ideas on that.
Yeah, happy to jump in, Andrew, if you've.
No, you start, Richard.
Yeah, and I should say up front as well, I know the question came from Chris here, who is another MSP based from Birmingham. So I just want to state for the record, not every MSP on this call today is from Birmingham. It just so happens that me, Craig, and Chris are. Chris runs a brilliant MSP, but you know, when all of us have had a situation where, as MSPs, where clients have said to us, we want to reduce our cost, what I would normally do is go back to them, Ray, and say, okay, which parts of the service do you want to remove? And then see what they've got to say there, because what they're actually saying to you is, we want everything that you deliver, but for a discount. And if any, you know, business is about supply and demand. And right now in the pandemic, the demand for IT services is higher than ever. And the demand, not just for IT services, but good IT services, is higher than ever. So yeah, there's lots of businesses having challenges economically in that, but to run a successful managed service business, you've got to do it sustainably, and you've got to charge for the services that you offer. So I think depending on the relationship that you've got with that client there, Chris, I would be saying to them, which part of the service do you want to remove? So for instance, if they said, oh, we want to remove the backup, you say, no problem, we can, this is what it will save you. To be very clear, if you experience a problem with your backup, because we've removed that service, if you need to restore from backup, any work that we do for you will be entirely chargeable. So we are happy to reduce the service for you, but to make you aware, this is not something that we're going to take on our shoulders. We're going to need to charge you for any remedial work that you do there. So I think it's always a balance, and it's always a negotiation.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to deal with your customers where they're at. A lot of our MSPs deal with the hospitality sector, for example, and that's a sector that's had zero income for many months. It is a negotiation. One thing I will say is a lot of customers appreciate you standing with them during this time. If they are genuinely challenged and you stand with them as a partner, where you have the financial flexibility to do that, I think they respect you treating them fairly. You know, this is still business at the end of the day, and all business is a negotiation. But if you are firm but fair, I think that is best you can be in a circumstance like that. And certainly not cutting essential services first. Look at what there might be on the periphery, you know, an email signature product or whatever, something like that may give some leeway.
Absolutely, Andrew. Richard, thank you so much. I think we've got time for maybe one more question. Let's throw this one at you. Any unusual requests for remote service support during the pandemic? So have you had anything strange and wonderful happen in the last 12 months?
Loads, yeah. Andrew, what's the craziest one you've had?
Oh, one of my customers makes jerky. It's a meat product, and the food, being in the food industry, they had to carry on. And due to furlough and a variety of reasons, their on-site team wasn't available. So I found myself suspended over vats of raw meat, installing access points. Not exactly a pleasant task, but it was a scene from a horror movie. I'll never forget it. And to make it worse, I looked like a participant in a horror movie because I was fully, you know, PPE'd with the dust suits. I looked like I was handling asbestos or something, because not only the mask, but the whole body, because I'm in a food processing area. So it was something to forget, but something I never will, unfortunately.
I definitely can't beat that story, Andrew. You win hands down on it. But I think, you know, all the MSPs that I've worked with worldwide, Ray, I've heard some absolutely crazy stories. I mentioned the Windows 95 one earlier, but some really poor equipment. And it was a case of, in the early days of certainly the great working from home rush, clients were just virtually shove any piece of equipment towards the MSP and say, can you make it work? But the interesting side of things, I think there's been an increase in demand for business grade broadband services in all parts of the world. I'm sat here at the moment and we're streaming for people all around the world. If my internet connection cut out, you would be, in all heaps of trouble. That goes for everybody. So whatever setup you've got at home in your home office, and I've got dual monitors and I've got all sorts of devices, I've got a digital frame at the background, all sorts of things going on here. But whatever devices that you use and rely on, your clients are going to want similar sorts of setup as well. So, that line between residential and or consumer and business is blurring a little bit. So I would even go as far, Ray, to say, I'm sat in a good quality chair here at the moment. I know loads of MSPs who have been inundated with requests from their clients saying, what chair should I get? Or what standing sitting desk should I get for the office? Nothing at all to do with IT, but going back to something that Craig said earlier on, this shows that you're a trusted business advisor and they just come to you for all of those things. So right now, all bets are off, and just be that advisor to your clients. Anything that's got a plug at the end of it, they're going to want help with. Or not.
Absolutely.
Or not. You don't want to plug in the chair, Richard. Listen, guys, we've got about 60 seconds left. Really appreciate your time. Richard, just on, if you want to pitch your blog, just to people who can look more, and Andrew, obviously Technovate, great company, great partner of Acronis. Thank you so much for both. Richard, your blog is tubblog.co.uk.
Yeah, and for anybody watching this that wants to continue the conversation, if you go to tubblog.co.uk, that's tubblog.co.uk/NL. Every Tuesday morning, I send out my MSP insights. It's a letter to the email to the MSP industry. So feel free. And I think it was Alex and Nicholas, reach out to me and I'll get those books across to you as well.
Excellent, Richard. Thank you.
And at Technovate, we're here to offer Acronis's protection as a managed service. We have a managed services wrap that complements that product. And that's one way we equip our MSPs to be ahead of the game and deal with Acronis appropriately and, with premium partner level support. So thank you very much, all of you, for having me on today. And Richard, great to see you again and lovely to talk with you as always.
You too, Andrew. Thanks, Ray. Thanks for being brilliant.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Andrew. Two gentlemen. I really appreciate your time. Well, that's it. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much.